Ever wondered what would happen if you mixed the violence of Conan with the goofy villain gallery of He-Man? It might end up something like a Medieval, a game where instead of investing years of your life to learning magic, like some wizard pleb, you say you miss me with that gay shit, and have preemptively invested all of your points into strength and use magic device, thus allowing you to cast Axe to the faces of your enemies while backing it up with arcane whippings in the form of magic staves and swords you found lying around in some fortress. After spending who knows how long doing what the fuck ever, you've been summoned to a floating gate world by some disembodied voice. Who it is never really made clear, although it's probably your mother since she's nagging you to take out the rubbish and save the rest of the universe while you're out, since the supreme evil being from next door has moved in and wrecked everyone's shit. In any case, assuming you managed to use your gamer skills to successfully choose a difficulty without dying in a very Quake-inspired selection world, you've been called upon to travel through 6 magic portals and a bonus stage to backhand the forces of evil, all of whom have committed the most heinous of sins: squatting. Therefore, tanking the housing market by the crime of simply existing, and leaving you to play the part of evicting these no-good home invaders from many far-flung and fantastical properties, all of which feature prime real estate locations such as Castle, Other Castle, Slightly More Menacing Castle, Serious Sam, the bad episodes, weird-ass Forge World that most definitely does not feel misplaced, and a series of floating islands fueled by nothing more than magic and badassery. That's basically the shorthand of the story. My ring hand is reserved solely for the monsters thinking up these good Christian neighborhoods. These new occupants are not believers when it comes to practicing gun safety either, so they'll often leave the tools to their own destruction lying around just about anywhere. The closest precaution they'll take is hiding some of the really powerful ones in some corner, following the proverb that out of sight means hopefully they won't be blown out of their minds. Speaking of which, the arsenal of magically charged weaponry to really get medieval on some asses come color-coded for your convenience, sharing the same ammo pool, mana, as other weapons, with blue being divided between the Azure Staff, which fires auto-targeting magic missiles for the purpose of appealing to larger audiences, and the Nikola Tesla-approved Voltride Trident that can supercharge enemies and chain to others nearby, killing them instantly. Good luck getting it to work when being swarmed by hordes of enemies constantly breaking your line of sight though. Green is dedicated to your Mace of Torment, which is aptly named considering it can take down most things within a couple of swings, and can be used to decorate the holes with the bodies of your enemies as you turn them into pincushions. While the Whisper's Edge Scimitar flicks out waves of energy that can also cancel out some enemy projectiles, allowing you to live out your wizard LARPing fantasies. Orange and purple are too cool to share, so they're both dedicated to a single weapon each. The former, being the Celestial Claw, is a retextured rocket launcher that shoots out planets and is generally pretty cool not only by being powerful and able to fling you across the room, but also being capable to shamelessly abuse wall physics to speedrun entire levels. And finally, the Eternium is the quintessential BFG that I'm convinced is the Control-Alt-Delete function personified into something we simple mortals can comprehend. Or should I say attempt to comprehend anyway, since it is a fickle god that'll decide arbitrarily who to kill with any given attack. If these aren't enough to satiate your desires to inflict maximum damage possible, then you should be pleased to know you're able to supercharge your weapons by entering Soul Mode. This can be done by collecting the souls dropped by defeated enemies or finding power-ups scattered throughout each level, and once the bar is full, you're then able to go absolutely ballistic and activate an alternate firing mode depending on which weapon you're using, all at the small cost of doubling your ammo consumption. Whether it's effectively turning your pea-shooter Azure Staff into a Vulcan 20mm, morphing your sword into a first-person version of Breakout, upgrading your planets into suns that explode like a supernova, or having the Eternium literally go supernova and create miniature black holes that'll put thoughts to shame with how much power will suck in anything within reach, including you. Finally, you can turn your beefy axe from a formidable weapon of murder in its own right into a propeller blade that'll let you joust with sharks and zoom through the many water sections, or even recreate Will It Blend with certain bosses. As for the monsters you'll come across, they've got just about every angle covered, from the Morrowind glass armor guys and their RGB counterparts, to the antlions and acid-spitting snakes made out of glass that look like they paid Sif a visit, or the eye boys showing off their fashion sense and the variety of outfits their mothers made them wear. Nearly everything is faster than you, so there's always a sense of urgency to not stop unless you want to get bogged down and mobbed by hordes of enemies that they can send at you all at once, which, given the retro-style graphics, means they can afford the generous portions of monsters they start dishing out without running into a polycount deficiency anytime soon. The cast is fairly diverse, with many being unique to the episode they're featured in, although a couple do end up feeling recycled, like the robots from the Forges basically being the rock guys from Journeyman's Way, except they shoot lasers now. They even have the same nasty habit of sliding up into your DMs whenever you encounter them. Then you have a couple that are just annoying to deal with, like the constantly firing hit scan enemies that'll melt your face whenever you make the mistake of peeking over a ledge to notice them. Another being the grappling hooks that'll reel you in, which is all well and good until they start doing it after dying, so they'll drag you back across the map when you're just trying to do a puzzle. Yeah, okay guy. Besides most enemies in the Forge levels being ass though, the rest are pretty good, with flyers that float around shooting sun-beamed projectiles at you, or the mages actively dodge rolling around like they're Dark Souls PvP twinks trying to evade your attacks. And as usual, shields are the bane of my existence, having a higher chance to deflect attacks back at you depending on the difficulty you're playing on, so you have to either shoot around them with AoE weapons, or more often than not try introducing their face to your axe. Also, most of the bosses are pretty interesting monstrosities, with the big letdown being the corrupt spirit. It's so underwhelming that by mastering the art of tiptoeing side to side, this will confuse the giant eye of Sauron and render you impervious to all harm. In the unlikely event that this doesn't work, then I hope to God you remember to tuck your knees in, because you're in for a rough ride as you're pinballed around while playing the most literal form of the floor is lava, and in all likelihood getting hit by following attacks that you have pretty much no way of avoiding since it briefly robs control of the player. Besides this mention though, the others are pretty good, with the Twin Terrors likely being my favourite, since it's not every day you get stuck inside a giant blitzball arena while having to fight off two giant angry flying serpents wanting to eat your face. Most of the levels have a good mix of linearity, while having plenty of chances to get creative with shortcuts or finding secrets using rocket jumps to navigate the terrain, being quite pretty to look at and unique in their aesthetics to really sell the idea of them each being their own unconnected worlds independent of each episode. For the most part, the level design works, being pretty large and fun to explore, although some can get so complex as to be left wondering where to go at times. The low points would have to be the aforementioned Forge and Journeyman's Way, since the former just doesn't really look like it belongs in this kind of game, with annoying enemies and level design to go with it, and the latter sharing much the same problems, as well as being topped off with the most disappointing boss in the entire game and so many puzzle platforming sections that I resorted to rocket jumping past the vast majority of them, since they only serve to interrupt the flow of my heroic quest to murder everything I came across. On the complete opposite end of the scale would be Arcling Verge and the last set of levels, which is by far and away the best set of maps this game has to offer, featuring beautiful scenery, weird enemies, and multiple levels that you navigate between floating pools of water by manipulating the environment to progress, all the while being composed of impossible geometry, and it does well in showcasing the creativity of a magical, otherworldly place. All of which is only bolstered by the solid soundtrack of Andrew Hulshult and really flexes the strong points of the level design. And while the other unmentioned episodes are pretty solid in their own right, none of them really come quite as close to this level of quality. It's just a joy to play through. The joy of this game did come at the cost of a few bugs though, or should I say features, including such things as discovering the truest secret of this level being that you can fall forever, you can invent your own shortcuts, enemies spawn in as if they're invisible, collision physics being wonky when jumping on elevators, and while our champion is able to fall any height without taking damage or hold his breath indefinitely underwater, the simple matter of getting out of the water seems a bit beyond his ability. Literally unplayable. So to wrap up, the game features more good levels than it does bad ones, with so many secrets and accolades to go back to complete, giving them some added replay value. Each episode can be completed in about 30 to 45 minutes each, so you can go through them in chunks if you have too much of a life to not afford hours-long play sessions at a time, with the campaign taking about 5 to 7 hours to finish depending on not only the game difficulty, but also how difficult you find navigating the more complex levels. It has an endless horde mode, it runs well, it looks great, it has all the features to customize you should come to expect in an FPS that doesn't come from a simpler, more primitive time. All in all, The Medieval is a solid game inspired by older classics, and is definitely worth trying out.